Yes, welcome back. Let's read this one. I think that's maybe will be the final for today because I start to get tired. So that was the second factory of the Ford, the Henry Ford cars.
Ford Piquette Avenue Plant. Featured article. Ford Piquette Avenue Plant U.S. National Register of Historic Place SU.S. Historic District Contributing Property U.S. National Historic Landmark Michigan State Historic Site, a 3-story brick building with late Victorian style architecture. A row of telephone poles are on the right and a historical marker is next to the front door. Exterior of the Piquette Avenue plant. Ford Piquette Avenue plant is located in Michigan. Ford Piquette Avenue plant. Ford Piquette Avenue plant is located in the United States. Ford Piquette Avenue plant. Location 461 Piquette Street. The Ford Piquette Avenue plant is a former factory located within the Milwaukee Junction area of Detroit, Michigan, in the United States. Built in 1904, it was the second center of automobile production for the Ford Motor Company, after the Ford Mac Avenue plant. At the Piquette Avenue plant, the company created and first produced the Ford Model T, the car credited with initiating the mass use of automobiles in the United States. Prior to the Model T, several other car models were assembled at the factory. Early experiments using a moving assembly line to make cars were also conducted there. It was also the first factory where more than 100 cars were assembled in one day. While it was headquartered at the Piquette Avenue plant, Ford Motor Company became the biggest U.S.-based automaker, and it would remain so until the mid-1920s. The factory was used by the company until 1910, when its car production activity was relocated to the new, bigger Highland Park Ford plant. Studebaker bought the factory in 1911, using it to assemble cars until 1933. The building was sold in 1936, going through a series of owners for the rest of the 20th century before becoming a museum in 2001. The Piquette Avenue plant is the oldest purpose-built automotive factory building open to the public. The museum, which was visited by over 31,000 people in 2018, has exhibits that primarily focus on the beginning of the United States automotive industry. The building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2002, became a Michigan State Historic Site in 2003, and was designated a National Historic Landmark in 2006. History. Ford period. Henry Ford, Detroit coal merchant Alexander Y. Malcolmson, and a group of investors formed the Ford Motor Company on the 16th of June, 1903, to assemble automobiles. 1. 1011, 2. The company's first car model, the original Ford Model O, began to be assembled that same month at the Ford Mac Avenue plant, a rented wagon manufacturing shop in Detroit, Michigan. 1. 1112 The company quickly outgrew this facility and, on April 10, 1904, bought a parcel of land off of Piquette Avenue in Detroit to accommodate a larger factory. 1. 12 The land was located in the Milwaukee Junction area, whose name is derived from a railroad junction within it. 1. 4. 12 The Ford Piquette Avenue plant's construction started on May 10, 1904. 1. 12 The company moved into its new factory following October. 1. 13. Detroit, Michigan coordinates 42.3691 degree N 83.0655 degree W built 1904 Architect Field, Hinchman and Smith Architectural Style Late Victorian Visitation 31,018, 2018. Part of Piquette Avenue Industrial Historic District, ID 04000601, NIHP reference number 02000041. Significant dates added to NIHP 2002 designated CP 2004 designated NHL 2006 designated MSHS 2003. The Detroit-based architectural firm Field, Hinchman and Smith designed Piquette Avenue Plant. 1912. It is an example of late Victorian style architecture and was modeled after New England textile mills. 173. Designing factories based on this type of mill was common practice in the United States at the time. 4. The building is 3 stories high, 56 feet, 17.1 m, wide, and 402 feet, 122.5 m, long. 5. 6. Its load-bearing exterior brick walls contain 355 windows, and its maple floors, supported by square oak beams and posts, cover 67,000 square feet, 6,224.5 square meters. 177. The Piquette Avenue plant contains 2 elevator stairwell combinations, one located on its northwest corner and the other located on its southwest side. 157. Recalling a fire in March 1901 that destroyed the Olds Motor Works factory in Detroit, Henry Ford and the architects included a fire sprinkler system in the building's design, a rarer feature for industrial buildings of the period. 8. This and several other original safety features in the factory, such as its firewalls, fire doors, and fire escapes, are still present. 178. Water for the sprinkler system was supplied by a wooden water tank located on the building's roof. 1.5. A brick powerhouse, measuring 36 feet, 11.0 m, wide by 57 feet, 17.4 m, long, was the original electricity provider for the factory, and was located near its northwest corner. 1. 4. 1213. The water tank and powerhouse no longer exist. 1. 4. 5. An open room with a wooden floor and a brick wall. The room's wooden ceiling is held up by wooden beams and wooden supports. A large sliding door is open, revealing similar rooms beyond. The Piquette Avenue plant's interior. Note the sliding fire doors at each firewall. From October 1904 to the end of 1909, Ford Motor Company assembled car models B, C, F, K, N, R, S, and T at the Piquette Avenue plant. 129. Ford models B and C were the first car models produced at the factory starting in late 1904, and production of the Ford Model F began the following February. 114. The vast majority of factory tasks were done by men, except for magneto assembly, which was done by women. 120. Hand tools were used for the assembly work at fixed stations, and the completed components would be brought by hand to the chassis for final assembly. 11718. 20 completed cars were shipped to the company's distributors and dealers by rail using a spur line behind the building, which connected to a Michigan Central Railroad main line. 12. Due to variations in demand and car model changeover, the number of employees varied constantly, ranging from as low as 300 to as high as 700. 120. The company did not recognize labor unions at the factory. 121. Ford Motor Company was a member of the Employers Association of Detroit, an organization that prevented most of the city's factories from unionizing until the 1930s. 121. In 1905, Ford Motor Company was the 4th largest car producer in the United States, behind Cadillac, Rambler and Oldsmobile. 14 In the company's early years, most major components in its cars were manufactured by outside companies, including the running gear, the chassis, engine, transmission, drive shaft, and axles, which were supplied by the Dodge Brothers Company. 11 That began to change in early 1906, when the Ford Manufacturing Company, a new, separate company created by Henry Ford and some Ford Motor Company stockholders, started to make engines and transmissions for the upcoming Ford Model N. 15 The Ford Manufacturing Company was located at the Bellevue Avenue plant, a leased factory off of Bellevue Avenue in Detroit. 1516 The Bellevue Avenue plant was used until 1908, by which time almost all manufacturing of major components for Ford Motor Company cars was taking place at the Piquette Avenue plant. 1415 Model N production began at the Piquette Avenue plant in July 1906. 14 That same month, Henry Ford bought the Ford Motor Company shares owned by fellow company co-founder Alexander Malcolmson. 11 15 While Malcolmson was with the company, he and Henry Ford disagreed over the type of car that the company should produce. 15 Malcolmson preferred expensive cars, like a Ford Model K. Henry Ford favored inexpensive cars, like the Model N. 15 Once Malcolmson was no longer part of the company, Henry Ford, now with uncontested control, focused the company's efforts towards making cheap cars exclusively. 15 The success of the Model N made Ford Motor Company the largest automaker in the United States by the end of 1906, a distinction that it would hold for 20 years. 14 In January 1907, in a room located on the Piquette Avenue plant's third floor in the northeast corner, the design process began for the Ford Model T, the car credited with starting the mass use of cars in the United States. 18 Much of the design and experimental work for the new car was done by Henry Ford, draftsman Joseph Gallam, engineer Child Harold Wills, and machinist C.J. Smith. 18 Vanadium steel, an alloy lighter and stronger than standard steel, which was first used sparingly with the Ford Model N, R, and S, was used extensively with the Model T. 17 The company revealed the plans for the Model T to its dealers on the 19th of March, 1908. 19 During July 1908, a few months before the Model T's introduction, a group of Piquette Avenue plant employees experimented with the concept of using a moving assembly line to make cars, where the chassis would be moved to workers for components to be installed. 18 This effort was led by Charles E. Sorensen, the assistant to Peter E. Martin, who was the factory's superintendent. 18 7 Sorensen believed that a moving assembly line would make car assembly faster, simpler, and easier. 18 The experiments consisted of tying a rope to a Model N chassis and pulling it across the factory's third floor on skids until its axles and wheels were added. 18 The chassis would then be rolled across the floor in notches, where specific components would be attached. 18 At least one Model N was completed at the Piquette Avenue plant using this process. 18 Although Henry Ford encouraged these experiments, he did not implement a formal moving assembly line at the Piquette Avenue plant, as all of his attention was focused on getting Model T production started on time. 18 Despite not having a moving assembly line, the Piquette Avenue plant, aided by the usage of interchangeable parts and other production improvements, produced 101 completed cars in a single day on the 4th of June, 1908, an auto industry record at the time. 18 10 The first production Model T was completed at the Piquette Avenue plant on the 27th of September, 1908. 7 On May 1, 1909, Due to overwhelming demand, Ford Motor Company stopped taking Model T orders for 2 months. 1. 19 to satisfy the unprecedented demand for the Model T. The company moved most of its car production activity to the new larger Highland Park Ford plant in Highland Park, Michigan, by January 1910. 1. 14. 22 The company completely vacated the Piquette Avenue plant by October 1910. 1. 14 The concept of using a moving assembly line to manufacture cars would be fully implemented at the Highland Park Ford plant, starting on October 7, 1913. 11. Over 15 million Model Ts would eventually be built, and the first 14,000 made in the United States were assembled at the Piquette Avenue plant. 2. 7. Ford car models assembled at the Piquette Avenue plant. 1. 14 15. 2. Car model image engine transmission wheelbase lowest sale price a production period not as model but green colored, old-fashioned car with 4 seats and brass fittings. 24 brake horsepower, 17.9 kilowatts, inline 4-cylinder 2-speed planetary 92 inches, 233.7 centimeters, $2,000, equivalent to $60,319 in 2021. Late 1904 April 1906 First Ford Motor Company car model with the engine mounted in the front which was intended to match European-style car designs. 12. Rarest of the company's pro-model car models with only seven known complete units that survive today. 13. Model C a red-colored, old-fashioned car with 2 seats and brass fittings. 10 brake horsepower, 7.5 kilowatts, opposed 2-cylinder 2-speed planetary 78 inches, 198.1 centimeters, $800, equivalent to $24,127 in 2021. Late 1904 December 1905 Like the model this car model had its engine mounted under the seat, its European-style hood was a Fossard. 14. Model F a green-colored, old-fashioned car with 4 seats and brass fittings. 16 brake horsepower, 11.9 kilowatts, opposed 2-cylinder 2-speed planetary 84 inches, 213.4 centimeters, $1,000, equivalent to $30,159 in 2021. February 1905 April 1906 Like the model this car model had its engine mounted under the seat, its European-style hood was a Fossard. 15. Model K a white-colored, old-fashioned car with 4 seats and brass fittings. 40 brake horsepower, 29.8 kilowatts, inline 6-cylinder 2-speed planetary 114 inches, 289.6 304.8 centimeters, $2,500, equivalent to $75,398 in 2021. Late 1905-1908. Before October, wheelbase increased from 114 inches, 289.6 centimeters, to 120 inches, 304.8 centimeters. By 1907. 16. Evidences suggests that this car model's assembled. Component production was moved to the Bellevue Avenue plant by 1908. 1. 17 Model N a red-colored, old-fashioned car with 2 seats and brass fittings. 18 brake horsepower, 13.4 kilowatts, inline 4-cylinder 2-speed planetary 84 inches, 213.4 centimeters, $600, equivalent to $18,096 in 2021. July 1906-1908. Before October. Best-selling car model in the United States at the time, with over 7,000 units produced. 13. Considered her predecessor of the Model T. 13. Model RA green colored, old-fashioned car with 2 seats and brass fittings. 18 brake horsepower, 13.4 kilowatts, inline 4-cylinder 2-speed planetary 84 inches, 213.4 centimeters,